stories to be told, treasures to be found, silver and gold, dollars and pounds, never worth more than the stories of a town.
Goulburn was declared Australia's first inland city in 1863. Surprised me when I first heard that. But then, white explorers looked down onto these plains for the first time as far back as 1798. And that's a good 14 years before anyone had a look at the plains around Bathurst to the west of Sydney. And the fact that Goulburn's always been on the most direct route between our two premier settlements of Sydney and Melbourne has guaranteed its importance ever since. Hamilton Hume and his party of explorers named this area the Goulburn Plains, after the then British Secretary of State for the Colonies, Mr. Henry Goulburn. Governor Macquarie described the plains during his travels in 1820 as a noble, extensive, rich meadow near a fine, large pond of fresh water, the livestock being up to their bellies in as fine, long, sweet grass as I have seen anywhere. I doubt Macquarie saw any merinos quite this size, however. But the district became one of the wool industry's shining lights. Living off the sheep's back proved to be very productive in these parts. By 1834, a station called Lansdowne was already running 10,000 head of sheep. The station, in fact, became the terminus for the original Hume Highway, with Cobb & Co. using these stables for their horses. It was the construction of the Great South Road that was really to secure Goulburn's future. Sir Thomas Mitchell, on laying out the route, wrote, "I had marked out in 1830 the new road before me, which I had considered the most important in New South Wales." The Hume Highway has been a movable feast for over 170 years, and a few tracks remain from the very first route. So, who gets the unenviable task of constructing this initial Great South Road? As with most public works of the era, the engineers tapped into a very plentiful and cheap labour force, the convicts. And it's nice to see that some of their hard work has actually stood the test of time. The Mount Taurang Stockade lies about 500 metres away. It was the chief penal camp for the whole southern district. A chain gang of 250 convicts lived here for 6 years working on the road. And a recent archaeological dig has uncovered remnants of the barracks. There was a bakery just up there, a blacksmith shop, and the only remaining building is remnants of the old powder magazine in the bank of the river just down there. The cemetery remains as a testament to the construction regime that took a heavy toll on its workforce. Goulburn very quickly became an important stop on the road between Sydney and Melbourne. Interestingly, this early roadway actually had a toll on it. Travellers had to pay 2 shillings at various roadhouses around Goulburn. This revenue mainly benefited the new colony's government. But the toll seemed a very unfair impost on the townsfolk of Goulburn and was eventually withdrawn after pressure from various town representatives, including Nathan Mandelson. He created one of the most luxurious hotels in the district, an obvious requirement for this emerging pit stop. Mandelson's hotel became the place to stay and conduct your business. One particular meeting was to have dramatic ramifications. In this very room, back in 1846, William Bradley and his associates met together and formed the Sydney Railway Company. Their express intention was to build Australia's first railway. You can just imagine Bradley and his cohorts sitting here, enthusiastic but dignified, excited by the prospect of this revolutionary new form of transport for New South Wales. Bradley's vision became a reality, and in 1869, the line finally reached Goulburn. To mark the grand occasion, Lady Belmore, the wife of the Governor of New South Wales, gracefully descended the stairs here at Mandelson's, to be escorted by local dignitaries across to the park opposite the railway station. In the park, she planted this oak tree to commemorate the occasion. The old Goulburn brewery opened back in the 1830s to make a quid out of quenching the thirst of the travellers in the growing city. Construction began in 1833. The designer was Australia's first recognised architect, Francis Greenway. Today, it's run by a priest, Michael O'Halloran, who's been renovating it for nearly 30 years.
Oh, well, he came to Australia as a convict. He was transported for forgery, which makes it rather nice that when we introduced the decimal currency back in '65, the first of the decimal currency notes, the $10 note, had his portrait on the front. So Australia must be the only country in the world, if not in the whole of recorded history, to have a convicted forger on its official currency.
Anybody who travels through Goulburn these days can't help but notice this massive monument overlooking the town. It sits atop Rocky Hill and was built by the locals in 1925. It's to honour those who fought and died in the First World War. And one of those locals of particular interest is a fella called William Thomas Leggett, and he's reported to be one of the first Australians killed in the battles for the Western Front. For a small town in Belgium called Gilwee, Leggett is a heroic figure who died in defence of their country. A memorial dedicated to Leggett sits in the heart of the town. The Goulburn Memorial is the outline from which the Belgian sculpture was cut out. Added to both sculptures are small bronze figurines made by Belgian schoolchildren. Miles Franklin was another iconic Australian who called Goulburn home. She wrote the book My Brilliant Career near here. A local bookshop on the main street became the first bookseller to release the now famous novel. Goulburn's expansion was slowed by the decision to build Australia's capital city, Canberra, nearby. The grandiose plans for an inland hub never quite came to fruition. For 170 years now, Goulburn's association with the Great South Road has helped to shape the town. Nowadays, Goulburn's relationship with the Hume Highway is more like a friend than a partner. With the bypass having been in place for some years now, Goulburn's been able to recapture some of the grace and grandeur that made it Australia's first great inland city.